Because when I was a teenager, I lived in very small community that I wished that I had somebody I could talk to, like random things. Some teenagers don't have good connections with their own parents or their own faculty members. Then somebody it's like in the middle of like third party situation. Then I was thinking I wish I could have somebody like that. Then when I apply for my the athletic and activities office secretary position, uh, I thought well, maybe some teenagers, some high school students at ASIJ wanted to talk to someone who are not faculty members, who are not adamant, willing to listen them.
Mm.
So that's my that was my motivation to interact a lot of high school students.
Welcome to episode 63 of Tokyo Alumni Podcast. Today, our guest is a former staff member of the American School in Japan. She was the Athletics Activities Office Secretary. She assisted athletic programs and co-curricular programs of middle and high school. In 2008, she learned that her mother had ovarian cancer a few weeks after her son's birth. In October 2015, her mother passed away peacefully. As recovering from her mother's passing and her previous marriage, she started thinking of quality of life. For finding what quality of life means, she began blogging in September 2020 because writing helps to express herself. She writes about the differences of international schools to Japanese schools and the perception and cultural differences people may have of Japanese versus English-speaking countries. Welcome to the podcast, Ms. Daigo.
Hello, Nikki Harris. How you doing?
Doing good. Good to see you. I said Miss Daigo, but I guess I'll probably go Daigo-san, which
Hi.
I feel most comfortable with. Hopefully you're okay with that too.
Go ahead.
All right. And today we'll talk a bit about your time at ASIJ as well as a bit of the time before and after. I think you are going to bring something new to the table in regards to guests, right? So far, we've had administrators, we've had teachers, we've had parents, and obviously alumni, but you were part of the international school sort of ecosystem in regards to in regards to being part of ASIJ as one of the business staff. So it'd be very interesting to hear your perspectives, sort of almost outside of this bubble, right, of parents, students, teachers, sort of looking in, maybe having a bit more objectivity too in regards to how you perceived your time at ASIJ. So.
Sure.
Can you tell us a bit about what you did at ASIJ?
Well, actually, people asking me what athletic office, athletic and activities office secretary did. I mean, it's very, very unique position. I'd say international school system is very different from Japanese schools. And my position was very, you had to deal with a lot of things, such as basic clearance, for example. Because, many people have no idea about basic clearance. And that's a lot of stuff, you have to organize lots of information, not only these athletes. The format of basic clearance was different from each military facility, such as Zama, Yokota, and Yokosuka, because they belong to different military. Zama is belong to Army, Yokosuka is belong to Navy, and Yokota is belong to Air Force. So they have different format, slightly different. So I have to figure out what kind of information they need for the game, sports games, and what when's the deadline.
Yeah, with the DODDS schools, ASIJ competed, right, especially in sports like American football, cross country, actually pretty much everything. Right? And were there any specific
much, yeah.
bases? Were there any specific bases that had much more sort of difficulty in regards to security clearance than other bases?
I understand like Yokosuka, the naval base is very different because their security security level was higher than other military bases, I'd say. Then also like some events, those school buses and parents have to meet at certain point at certain time. That was very different from Zama and Yokota.
Interesting. And when you were there, I remember, I think what made your position sort of unique too is one thing I think about a lot too, having, working at 4 international schools, is local staff don't interact that much with students. But in your case, you were one of the few business staff that knew a lot of the students. So how did that come about? Why did so many people know you? Was that something you actively seeked, like to try to connect to the students there? Yeah, and how did that come about?
I think that comes from my personal experience. Because when I was a teenager, I lived in very small community. That I wished that I had somebody I could talk to, like random things. Some teenagers don't have good connections with their own parents or their own faculty members. Then somebody it's like in the middle of like third party situation, then I was thinking like I wish I could have somebody like that. Then when I apply for my the athletic and activities office secretary position, I thought like well, maybe some teenagers, some high school students at ASIJ wanted to talk to someone who are not faculty members, who are not admins, willing to listen them. So that's my that was my motivation to interact a lot of high school students.
During your time there, what would you say were some of the best memories working at ASIJ?
Well, for sure, getting to know a lot of then high school student was the best memories, and as athletic activities office secretary, because at the time the office was located in the high school book locker area. I had no other choice, right? So then I saw high school students who were hanging out at the book locker area every single day. So then I think I was very lucky to have so much opportunity to get to know a lot of students who were open-minded, friendly, and fun and unique. So in fact, as you mentioned, like I interacted a lot of students. Then I knew like those students who were not in sports activities, and they were surprised I know their names.
So before ASIJ, people kind of say INTA, they say American school, and there's kind of a vague, somewhat, it seems like a vague recognition, among especially Tokyo people. But you personally, were you aware that the school even existed prior to joining? And when did you first hear about the American school in Japan?
Maybe like when I was a teenager, I think, because and I was born in 70s and grew up in 70s and 80s, and there's bilingual celebrity like Hayami Yu-san. She was your podcast guest. They started made their appearance on TV. That having those bilingual TV celebrity or idols are very new thing. And when, I found out they are, they were from international schools, or they attended at international school, I was surprised to know, oh, there are such schools besides Japanese schools.
So you had heard about it, and
Mhm.
when the time came, you joined us, and unfortunately, though, you leave 2008. So can you tell us a bit about why you left and what circumstances were surrounding your life during that time period?
Actually, I left ASIJ 2007.
2007.
Okay. And I was very interested in like those, health issue, because my mother, she was pretty sick at the time. That, as a family member, I wanted to try everything to feel her better. Then I was interested in like those, massage therapy, because I was not interested in like becoming doctor or nurse at the time, because I was sure it will take long time to become that profession. Then I was thinking like what was the fastest way to deal with something like a health. Then I uh, was interested in like those, massage therapist. And then I decided to become massage therapist, like to help, any possible way to, those, who have health issues, like, so that's why, I decided to leave ASIJ 2007. So yeah.
Interesting. And since then, you've been out of the international school system. Is there any part of you that would like to come back to the international school system in some capacity?
Sometimes, I was thinking about it, because international school is very interesting, unique, compared to like any Japanese schools or Japanese companies. It seems like more respect to each other. Then I felt like that would be more flexible for anyone who are working at those international school system. Yeah.
I think that sort of ties well into a question I'd prepared earlier. So schools like, ASIJ, and I think most international schools out there have these missions and mottos. For example, the ASIJ being fostering a community of inquisitive learners and independent thinkers inspired to be their best selves, empowered to make a difference. So, not being a student, a parent, or teacher, but being at school every day and interacting with students, did you feel like at ASIJ, you saw students representing and exemplifying this type of mission statement that ASIJ had?
I feel like some students develop into such citizens, and not every student. Because it seems like some students were mature or ready to accept the idea what those inclusive learners and independent students and independent thinkers, and I felt like it is difficult to become such citizens by students themselves. And because I think, it's also how faculty members gave idea to their students how to be inquisitive learners and independent students, independent thinkers. Without good guidances, it is difficult to be inquisitive learners and independent thinkers. I wasn't, interacting with students as faculty members or, you know, coach. I always, observe and interacted as staff member. Age-wise, I was, in the middle of parents, faculty members, and, and students. So I think it's easy to see students become inquisitive learners and independent thinkers, and I thought like, how do the faculty members, encourage their students to be inquisitive learners, independent thinkers, and in the classroom, and how they inspire their student to be their best selves, or encourage to empower, make a difference to be your best self. Then looking back at my working experience at ASIJ, it was in 2000s, because I worked there 2001 to 2007. Then I think that was the time when LGBT movement started. Then I think some students did it coming out at the time. That some faculty and staff members showed their support and respect to those coming out. Then others didn't know what to do. So I think we started hearing diversity and inclusion as something new in 2000. So then faculty need to catch up with new things as they interact, younger generations. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, and as you were saying, 2001 to 2007, it made me realize we almost perfectly overlapped. Right? I joined the high school in 2001, and obviously left in 2005. I couldn't be there forever. And I actually distinctly recall what you're talking about with the the LGBT movement back then. I must have been 2004 or 5. Students started the GSSA club. It was a Gay Straight Student Alliance. And if I recall correctly, there was some type of movement above the students and teachers. And I can't recall in detail, but at some level of administration, they were trying to stop the GSSA. They didn't want it to happen.
Yeah.
And I remember, not all, but about 80% of the students put on their locker some kind of poster that said something like, "Where's GSSA?" And I think that was definitely a powerful moment at ASIJ, because it really showed the power of the students, when they all sort of banded together. Because clearly 80% weren't LGBT. It was mostly people who weren't LGBT who were supporting their allies. So I'm surprised this conversation. I totally forgot about that episode. And obviously, as you mentioned, I think things have definitely come a long way since then, and it's been about 20 years. And
because I think a lot of faculty members and admins at the time were surprised those GSSA idea came up on the campus, and it was very new to like pretty much everybody there. I used to live in San Francisco, Bay Area of San Francisco, and meeting and talking to those people from LGBT was a new thing to me. That I was surprised, like some sort of surprised, like some faculty members were trying to stop the movement, those stuff. So I was thinking like, what's wrong? What's wrong about it? So yeah.
That's intriguing that you were seeing that happen too within the teachers and admin. And again, I cannot say what percent, but we know that there was a significant pushback. I believe it was at the board and administrative level, and I think ultimately the students actually won out, and GSSA did continue on, and that was definitely one of the sort of better chapters, I think, when it comes to the history of the school. When you graduate, so after you left, so you pursue massage therapy. Your son is born. He's currently, I think you said, in grade 6, and you very recently started a blog about quality of life and cultural differences. So, can you tell us a little bit about what prompted you to begin this blog? And let's talk a bit more about that.
Okay, blogging, like I didn't expect doing blogging, but a few years ago, I recognized, I have now healed from my mother's passing and my divorce. Both events happened in 2015. And I felt like the best way of healing myself from both events was, everything will be fine if I keep moving forward. But I was wrong. And I needed time to accept like all negative feelings, emotions such as anger, sorrow. I recognize, I need to take better care of myself, emotionally, mentally, and physically. And in Japan, we had our first state of emergency back in springtime in 2020. So I had a lot of time at home. Then during the time, I asked myself, why am I feeling uncomfortable with myself? Why do I struggle with my feelings? So then I couldn't find any answers. Then as time passed by, I asked myself, how can I feel more, comfortable with myself? How do I get the feelings that I'm good enough? So at the time, like, I watched a lot of YouTube videos. That many of them were related to spiritual ones, and one of them spoke to me like every human has desire to express his or herself. Then I started thinking like, how do I want to express myself? I didn't find any answers again. Then I started thinking like, what am I good at? Then finally, I recognized, I'm good at writing.
And when you started writing, was it the intention from the start to focus specifically on sort of this, bicultural, bilingual, international schools, or did that just sort of organically, come to fruition, that just naturally happened?
Because I just like it organically, because I never intended to write about those cultural differences or international schools and the differences of Japanese schools and international schools. At first, I wasn't sure if blogging is the proper way to express myself. Then actually, I hesitated to post my blog, share it on my, social, SNS, account, because, it was a very new thing to me. But I thought like, I'm not going to lose anything if I post, my perspective as a blog. And so why do I have to hesitate? So I just post it and share on my SNS, account. That's how it started. And I started, more blogs, and I recognize, there are many Japanese, there are, some Japanese bloggers who write about their lives in overseas. And I haven't found any bloggers who have working experience at international schools. So that's, how I wrote a blog with a title, インターナショナルスクールに入れる覚悟ありますか? Are you ready to send your children to an international school? By my working experience at ASIJ, and through the particular blog, more people find me as a unique blogger. Then I think, I have written some more blogs about differences of international schools and Japanese schools. So I don't mention particular school's name on my blog. But anyway, to me, writing about ASIJ is finding blue ocean among red ocean on the blog platform I registered.
That one you just mentioned, international school ni, I think, was it 子供を入れる覚悟は
入れる覚悟ありますか?
So what is that about? Like what is sort of your premise as well as, a conclusion?
Because when people find out I used to work at ASIJ, they ask me very basic questions, like such as these students speak only English, or do they understand other language, including Japanese, and they know some Japanese returnees, 帰国子女, attended at ASIJ. They also ask me are these Japanese students fully bilingual? And I replied, these questions, they show their interest about international schools. And I also find, many Japanese have, I don't know what it's called, but fantasy or, illusion that is, if Japanese student, like my son, attend at international school, so they become bilingual automatically. So that's why I wrote a particular blog, インターナショナルスクールに入れる覚悟はありますか? That it's like, saying like some notes saying, things you need to concern if, if you consider to send your children to international school, because that's a lot of pressure for both child and parents, because society have the kind of, I don't know, misunderstanding or illusion or something like that. So
and I feel like there's this constant quest amongst Japanese to improve English, because the simple reality is Japanese people just are not very good at English, as scores would indicate, at a global level. So in your personal journey, you had the experience of studying abroad at UC Davis. So I feel like that would sort of be the lighter version, right, of someone to try to get that real firsthand language as well as cultural acquisition. If it wasn't to go to INTA or, to go abroad as a high schooler or middle schooler, at least in college, to, go abroad, to, ryugakusuru. And in your case, how much of an impact do you think your time at UC Davis, which I believe, is it, you said about 6 months or a year?
Something like that, yeah. Short time.
So your short-term, stay at Davis, how much has that impacted your career as well as, your ability to communicate in English? So not just, the language, but also culturally.
I understand, flexibility is very important, because as I mentioned earlier, I was from a very small town, small community in Chiba, and those, flexibility, I didn't see very much. Then when I was, studying at UC Davis, I was quite surprised how flexible faculty members are, and other, students from other countries. So I was quite shocked that I was thinking, why does flexibility doesn't happen in Japan? So that's why I was very surprised that those parents may think international school is like quite similar to Japanese private, different from any Japanese private schools, I believe. And yeah, it's that's very much I just that's impact when I was at UC Davis. So
interesting. So it seems like that is one path people can take if they really want to sort of bring up their level in regards to linguistics as well as understanding foreign cultures, is that year or half a year abroad during college. So this is a little bit unorthodox, but it's something I want to continue to do as I interview anyone who is former staff, faculty, administrators of international schools. But during your time there, so 2001 to 7, so I guess graduates of about 2001 to 2010, you would have interacted with. Do you have any messages towards them who may be watching?
Would say like, be yourself, no matter, what you're doing, because, it is really hard, especially female students, because I'm a female too. So I'd say it may be a lot, overwhelming situation, whatever you do. I find some of them are, having kids right now. Then it doesn't matter where you are, because to me, moms have a lot of pressures to raise children, like some stereotypes, like mom should be doing this, mom shouldn't do this. But I would say, just be yourself, just be comfortable with yourself, because you are so precious. It doesn't matter how others say about your parenting, how your kids behave. You're the best mom to your kids, and like male, female, doesn't matter. Just be yourself, because those negative things may gives you a lot of pressure, but eventually everything is fine. Just accept who you are, accept who you are, just just try new things, even like it's pandemic time, like something new, you should try like something new, and don't try to focus on seeing negative things. So yeah.
And at the end here, I like to wrap it up with the guests telling us, what is to come in the next 5, 10 years, next 20 years, 30 years. Please tell us what is to come.
For near future, my son graduates from local elementary school. That's this March. It's very soon that he starts going to local middle school in April. In Japanese school system, schools start in April, and they end in March, and that is kind of a milestone to both my son and I, as a mom and the single mom. I was a little worried how things turned out to my son through his elementary school years. I think it turned out good, especially this school year. It has been really tough for him, and he has always happy to go to school and spend time with his friends despite this unusual situation. Then my son has told me like he will miss some of his friends who are going to private schools. He's also excited going to middle school with his buddies. So it's bittersweet, and so that it's very near future to us. So one of my resolution of 2021 is taking better care of myself, mentally, emotionally, and physically. That I am anemic. I have taken Chinese herbal medicine, just trying to improve my health. So then I'm looking for result, which will come maybe end of this year or early of 2022. And other thing is, it may sound crazy, but I'd love to work as full-time blogger. So I really enjoy blogging. I think blogging helps me to express myself, and it heals my negative emotions. So I'd love to develop my writing as a blogger. Then actually I have posted twice in a week since January 26th, and because I want more people to read my blogs, and posting my blogs on a regular basis means more people find my blogs, and yeah, I hope they find me as a unique blogger. So I don't know when it's gonna happen, but I'd like to work as full-time blogger. So I'd love to get offers. So, お願いします。お仕事お願いします。that's pretty much that's pretty much what comes to me. So so far. So
All right, yeah. So staying healthy, a lot more blogging. And yeah, I mean, it's something we didn't touch upon in the interview too much, but I think just to sort of reiterate a point you made earlier, to all the new moms, because you're right, that generation, the 2001 to 2010, they would all be, roughly 30 to 40. So right at that age where they're having children. And just so for some context, you're a single mother yourself. So, you especially feel sort of the pressures and the hardships one would, feel as a mom even more because you have double that you need to do.
I often write about how single moms feel, on my blog, very, not really deeply, not really emotionally, because I don't know like how readers would understand my perspective. So I just don't write very much like in a deep way. So just I just want to share my perspective, because now like everywhere you go there are some single mothers. So obviously I'm not the only single mother all over the world. So then I just want people to understand a little more about how our perspectives. So.
Yeah, it's definitely something that's very much has not been explored enough. Right? They say more than 10% of Japanese households are single parents, and in the States, it's more than 20. So it's definitely something very like, yeah, well, Sama desu to all the single parents out there. Yeah. Take us to the very end here of episode 63. And yeah, it was nice catching up. Nice seeing you. Again, sort of in this virtual context. I feel like nowadays with Zoom, to me, it almost makes no difference. I know there's a lot of people who really say it's got to be a face-to-face, but I don't know anymore. Yeah, it's 21st century, right? It's just this is
right.
Sort of
that, also like that shows as you're an educator now, right? Then you have to deal with those flexibility. Then Zoom teaching is a new thing for you, for pretty much like everybody, like those parents and students. And flexibility, new way to communicate, it's safer than it's challenging for everybody, though. That's that's what we learn about new things. So
most definitely. And yeah, we'll see you around, and hopefully I'll see you in person someday in the future.
Sure.
Thank you for being on today.
Thank you for having me today.